All right, guys, welcome. This is our Dotloop class today. Someone say something so that I know that everyone can hear me and that we're on. And that you can hear me, okay. Someone give me a thumbs up or say something.
I can
We
hear
can
you.
hear you.
Thank you, awesome. All right. All right, so I see based on who's here and who is on the Zoom that we have a variety of skill levels here. So I'm going to start with some basic stuff also because I want this to be a resource. That's why I'm recording it to go back to. Because here's what happens. I will tell you, you'll do it here in class and then you'll forget. It's kind of like algebra, right? You're in school, they teach it to you, you go home, do the homework, and it doesn't make any sense. So I want you to go back and use it as a resource because of course, also, when are you going to be using Dotloop? When you have your first chance to be writing contracts, right? So, and also it's few and far between. Maybe I don't do it again for a month, that kind of thing. So I want you to be able to have this as a resource. We are not going to turn this into a contracts class, however. So we're just going to be focusing on Dotloop. I know we tend to have some crossover with that. I also don't want this to be a command class. So although I can show you the steps if you feel like you need it to how you create a opportunity first in command. And am I speaking the right language when I say that? Does anyone know what that means? We start by going in command and creating an opportunity and then go to transaction to get to Dotloop. That's going to take me at least 10 minutes to do, which will cut out time for Dotloop training. So I'd rather leave the command piece off and then show that to you in a command training. Unless someone says, I don't even know what language you're speaking right now. I need help with that specifically. Because I really want us to focus on Dotloop training today. So, all right. And those of you on Zoom and here as well, Jacob, would you mind closing that door? I am going to do a share screen, so I won't necessarily see all of your faces. So please, I won't think you're rude because I interrupt people all the time, unfortunately. It's a bad habit. So do just interject and unmute yourself and ask a question as we proceed through. So we're going to go ahead and log into your Dotloop. Everyone should have their own login and password. And so I'm going to start with a couple of things. I'm going to show you some things across the top here. Get you guys out of the way. And then we're going to actually go in. We're going to create a loop. I'm going to show you how to add things to the loop. I'm going to show you how to do stuff with the documents in the loop, and then some advanced questions or basic questions along the way. All right. So first, when you get into Dotloop, everybody's looks just a little bit different. Let me put you guys up there. I have millions and millions and millions and millions of loops. So you might not yet have that. I also like this particular display. Some people like a different display. So if yours has bubbles across the screen, then you just chose a different display. I like mine to be a line list like this. That's a personal preference kind of a thing. I don't really use reporting for anything. Loops is where we're at. You can or not use tasks. I do tasks in command and not in Dotloop. So that's entirely up to you. Tasks is something that you can create and add to every loop that says something to the effect of, sent the contract to the lender, sent the contract to the title company, sent earnest or check to make sure earnest money got turned in, blah, blah, blah. All of those kinds of tasks. If you want to create those tasks for yourself in those lists, they will pop in as you create loops. Totally up to you. I don't want my tasks to be in Dotloop, however. What I'm really more interested in is templates right now. So I apologize for those of you at Elevate or Living. Yours is going to be a little bit different. The contracts are. So I only have access to paperwork for Legacy because this is the brokerage that I am actually in. So let's just again make this Dotloop specific and not necessarily worried about the contracts. Your Dotloop set up for your brokerages may be a little bit different too. So here at the top are some basic stuff. I will tell you that inbox is something that's the I'll say it's the most unused but valuable thing in Dotloop. And so what that means is I can actually email, I have a unique Dotloop email, which is right here. So if you guys go to templates and inbox, you'll find yours. Gina.ferrer.5@upload.dotloop.com. So I can enter that into that copier out there. And then when I want to add documents that like I'm scanning, maybe I was on a listing appointment and they signed everything. And now I want to scan those documents into Dotloop, rather than just emailing them to myself and adding them that way, I can just type this in and it'll go straight into my inbox. And then I can pull it in that way.
It's working pretty well now. Oh, the glitches with that.
Really?
Yeah, it's like, this is so frustrating, so I just stopped.
Oh.
But that was 3 years ago.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I use it pretty regularly. I try to keep up on deleting them too, because I've got a lot in there. Let me go all the way to the bottom here. Here's those tasks that you can create if you wanted to, and also clauses. So here's the clauses that I use, and then you can create a new clause. So this would be something that you type up a lot. So maybe there is, I don't know, let me think of one. Here we go. Is that right? America's preferred. I'm like, where am I at? America's preferred home warranty. So now that's a clause. So every time I'm on paperwork and I'm going to type America's preferred, it's going to just pop up for me. My name, my phone number, my email address, blah, blah, blah. All of the things that I use frequently on a paperwork that I don't want to have to type it all the way out, you can create a clause for that. So another thing that I think is underused, but it can save you minutes, seconds, whatever. I'd rather not have to type my name 50 billion times and it just pops up when I put a G. And it won't just autofill it. You have to click that you want to use it, because there's obviously other words that start with G, right? So then here, I want you to see that you can create folders for yourself as well. So I can add a new folder, name it today's class, let's just say Dotloop class. And now I have a new folder called Dotloop. What I use for those actually is buyer docs, listing docs, and I have a couple of miscellaneous folders. Why do I want to do that? Well, because when you dig into the brokerage's listing and sales docs, it's everything. New people make this mistake all the time, so I'm going to say it now. When you create a loop, and I'll show you, you don't need to add all of the documents in your loop. I know why you're freaking out about the paperwork, because there's 25 documents that you just don't need. It doesn't mean when we look at the sales folder that you might not need some of these. It's a menu. Let's look at it as a menu. You don't need all of these for every transaction, but you could need them if you're using it. So like, for example, if I'm not going to do an appraisal gap, do I need this to be in my loop? You probably don't. If I don't need a blank addendum, then I don't need it in my loop. But I can always dip back into this sales folder if and when I need those documents. Same thing goes for listings. There's a lot of things in here that I just don't need. Would I need an exclusive right to sell and an exclusive right to sell large print? It's the same thing. So there's just a lot of things that are duplicates or things you may not need. If the house isn't built before 78, do I need a lead-based paint disclosure? No, but it's here to access like a menu of things that you can pull in. So that's what's in here. I do create my own, let's just look at listing docs. So this is my own folder of listing docs. So these are the things that I know that I use quite regularly, but I'm still not going to pull them all into my loop if I don't need them all. Like, I might not need a property disclosure exemption form, but I probably need either or, right? Questions about templates before I go back to loops?
The question I have would be the command thing, command one field, it does.
You can bypass it.
I do bypass it, then I put my own name later.
Okay, but I mean, yeah, you can, so when you are in command creating an opportunity and then it says you go to transaction,
Yeah,
it says listing or buyer.
yeah.
Skip it, don't check one.
That's what I've been.
Okay, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
I wasn't sure if they're the way. So,
That, I don't know why we put that option in there, but we do. It's the same when you open up a loop and I'll show you here. It asks you which one you want. I ignore it every time, hit enter, 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 and then it's gone.
this is something.
Now, I think that way back when they thought that agents needed to know to put one or the other. I'm not really sure, but I bypass it. Let me also show you how you add documents. So this was my fake loop that I'm gonna put together. I can just go to add document from templates. Go into, let's just say this listing documents, and then I can go in here and check the boxes of the documents that maybe I want, right? That I'm gonna need. I don't need an edit status change form right now. We haven't even listed the property yet. That. I'm just picking some of the basic stuff and then copy. And now it's in there. So now my folder that I call Dotloop class has the documents that I need. So this gives me quick access when I'm creating a new loop. That's the only reason why you want to create your own stuff up here. I do a lot of miscellaneous folders here because these are documents I don't want to go digging for. If I need a seller's net sheet, I don't want to go hunting for it. When let's say listing status change form, I don't want to go hunting in Keller Williams miscellaneous forms for it. So every time it's something that I know I might use frequently that I want to dip into, those are the kinds of things that I put in my own miscellaneous folder. There's no right or wrong. You'll find that along the way. Questions? Nope. All right, moving on. So we're going to go ahead and create a loop. And I don't know, I'm just gonna pick something. It's funny how you'll find that let me also mention here, I don't like my loop, if I'm creating a loop, to merge with somebody else's. I don't want to merge loops. You might want to merge loops. It's okay. When I have a listing and I get 15 offers and 5 of the agents merge the loop and the other 10 don't, then I've got loops and offers all over the place. I just personally prefer not to. But now that Dotloop is tapped into the MLS, it knows that there's listings, that could pop up. And there's even actually a test road. Funny. Street, can't. So I just don't click on this kind of a thing. I just keep typing to bypass it. And then I hit continue. And so here is where that loop template's at that you can choose. I just don't choose one and hit continue and then done. And I don't care if there's a photo of the house. Some people want to go through all that. Hey, that's up to you. Nobody cares about that. I certainly don't. But again, when you merge loops, sometimes the photo of the house will pop up here. Makes no difference to me personally. All right, so here's my loop. The first thing I do when I work my way down is select transaction type. I'm just going to go with purchase. And I'm going to say pre-offer. And then I'm right in my documents section, we've got some folders. So you can add multiple folders if you want. So for right now, let's just have 2 folders. And one says new folder and one says folder. So this one, I might rename it. So don't, let me say this. These 3 little gray dots are everywhere. And they mean a lot of things. It's really easy to miss them. I don't know why they're not in bright bold rather than gray. So here in this one, it's rename. So I don't like my folders. I'm just being picky to say folder. So I'm going to call this one, let's say buyer docs, enter. And then this one, I'm going to call offer. So why might I have two different folders, buyer docs and an offer? What might be an
Buyer
example?
docs probably end up being the buyer's agency agreement, the
Consumer guide, yeah,
consumer guide,
yep.
stuff like that.
So some basic docs that I'm gonna need for any transaction. I'll keep that maybe in a different folder. It also prohibits you that, not prohibits, it keeps you from sending, like I always laugh when a buyer's agent sends me their consumer guide or their exclusive buyer's agency, which is private information between that agent and their client and not for the eyes of listing agent. So those documents don't need to go with your offer. So that might keep you a little more organized if you create two folders like that. And then if this offer doesn't get accepted, then you just archive the offer, right? And then what I would do then is I would change the name of the loop to the person's name. And that way, then what you'll do is, and then let me also say this, because I get this question a lot. Don't work from this loop next time you write an offer. There's like something that happens in the memory of Dotloop, even though you have the name changed to the person's name in the autofill. It will deep down in there autofill all your documents, possibly the old address. So we don't want that to happen. So I don't typically, there's a bypass for that, but that's a whole long way of telling you how to go in there and do it. I don't want my documents to autofill incorrectly. Also, you're gonna have to go in Command and create a new opportunity anyway, which is gonna take you into a whole new loop also. So I just make copies of those documents from one loop to the next, and I'll show you how to do that here in a bit. All right. So then before I add documents, I'll say I'm doing a lot of these things because I want to get to my end goal here fast. I could be writing this offer and I've got 30 minutes to get it submitted because it's got 25 other offers on it. And so I can't be learning how to use Dotloop or diddling around with paperwork when I'm under the gun here and I've got to get this offer submitted. That's also why you guys want to practice over and over and over again. And let me also make another suggestion. If you're going to go with a buyer to see a house that you know is brand new on the market, probably going to have multiple offers, take the time to put together your loop before you even go to the showing. What does it hurt? It's also good practice. So this way you have some things filled out. Obviously you don't have the price and you don't have some details from the buyer yet, but you can start the paperwork and at least have it ready. So this way you can bypass some of those basic things and get your offers in quicker without making mistakes. Even myself, after so many years in real estate, when I make a mistake, because I do very, very, very rarely, but I do occasionally make a mistake, it's because I was rushing. So avoid that by trying to learn this, but also to have things ready. So with that said, I like to autofill as much as possible. I also let you know that you have one opportunity to autofill correctly. So if you accidentally open up a document, you'll have bypassed the autofill and you won't get a second chance. I also like to add my people next. So I'm just gonna add my husband. Ferrer. And if I ever had him in the loop before, he'll just pop right up. So there he is. His role is gonna be buyer. I don't fill any of the rest of this out. And add person.
You already have his email in there.
I did. It remembers when you start adding, yeah. The next thing that you're all gonna do, for those of you at Living, you're gonna add Janice. For those of you at Legacy, you're gonna add me. And so then I'm just gonna pick Rich. Oops. So I'm gonna pick Rich. And by the way, roles required, but it doesn't know and it also doesn't matter. Role is just how you're gonna autofill documents. So some of you will do this. Hey, I added you to the loop for you to look at it and I gave you the role of admin. That does not give me access to your loop. And I can tell you over the years, everybody thinks that because I've had that probably 150 times when someone says I added you to the loop, they think they added me to the loop because they gave me the role admin. That just has to do with autofilling documents. So it doesn't really matter what role you give me. So I would suggest you just give me other. I can't add myself. That's why I'm using Rich as an example here. The main thing to know is this is how you give me access to your loop. And let me pause there for a second. The only reason that you want to give me as your coach access to the loop is so that I can view your documents when you have questions about them. You don't need to share them with me. It gets me right into your loop. I can look at it. And if you needed me to make a change for something for you, or we're in a really big hurry and you need me to fill something out quickly, the only way to give me access to do that is by checking this box, add to my team. I'm not going to do it because Rich is going to say, why the hell did you add me to a team? And so by add to my team, that gives me full access to see into your loop. So at Living, you'll want to add Janice and you'll want to add her to your team. And here you'll want to use me if you're in coaching. You'll never want to add someone to your team other than me. You don't need to add Rich to your team as our broker. You don't need to add ever the listing agent or the buyer's agent. That gives them full access to your paperwork and your loop. When I log in and you've added me to the team, I am now you in Dotloop. I can make as many changes and do whatever I need to do to help you out. You never, ever, ever want a client to have full access. We don't want them going in and making changes to the paperwork. We're licensed to fill this out. We don't need them going in there and trying to mess up our contracts. All they need to have access to is to either fill and sign or sign. The only time that they would ever use fill and sign is if you're sending them a residential property disclosure and they're a seller and they need to fill it out online because they're not filling it out in person. I'm going to go to adding documents next. Questions about that?
You said something about like, if you were going to go, well, a house that has multiple offers, email us, loop up front. Because the command thing takes so much time to do it, so you just make your loop up within Dotloop.
So I do. So great question. When I'm in a hurry, I don't start with command. It takes an extra 10 minutes. I start right in Dotloop. I write my offer. If the offer gets accepted, so if it doesn't get accepted, who cares, right? It's done. If it gets accepted, then I go into command and then I add the contact if they're not already in there. And then I create the opportunity, which is going to create a whole nother loop, whatever. And then I'm going to make a copy of those signed documents and add them into that loop and archive this one. Make sense? Makes my life much easier. Sure, it could be an extra step to copy documents from one to another. Well, right.
Honest.
And I don't want to take that time. I don't. I would much rather just because again, it's a moot point if the offer doesn't get accepted anyway.
Right.
You know, so it's really easy to make copies of documents from one loop to another, which I will also show you. All right. So documents, add docs. When you hit add docs, 3 bubbles pop up. One says email, one says browse, and one says templates. So I'm going to start with from email. And I'm going to say, click it. And then this copy to clipboard is going to pop up. I'm also going to click it. And then it says email copy to your clipboard. Get you guys out of the way. A little bit here. And now I'm going to go into my email. So I purposely emailed myself a pre-approval letter. Okay.
This part.
So this was an email. So pretend like the lender or the client sent me their pre-approval letter, right? And here it is as a PDF. I can hit forward. Paste that Dotloop in there. So this is different than your unique Dotloop email address. This is going to go right into your loop.
This goes into the inbox.
Nope. This goes into your loop. So now I'm going to go back to we're talking 2 different languages here. Hit refresh and there it is. So my unique Dotloop email was Gina.Ferrer5 @ blah, blah. That's a direct input email that goes into your inbox if I was scanning it to myself. When I copy the clipboard and forward from an email, it goes right into your loop. but you have to copy it the right way. So did you see how I did that? If you don't copy that, so that is a unique Dotloop email specifically for this loop. That's not your Gina.Dotloop email. Yep.
Okay, so that's new to me.
Okay,
The way I did it was
download.
in the
And
PDF
you could.
on my drive.
My computer has got so many downloads and I never take the time to go in and clean them out. So if I can bypass having to download everybody's pre-approval letter, then I don't.
I understand. Is it wrong to do that or is it just another way to?
Personal preference, just a totally, because if it wasn't a good option, then it wouldn't be an option, right? So it's here just because, and what else might get emailed to you? Well, a agent who doesn't use Dotloop might have their client sign the paperwork and they just send you back a PDF, which I know has happened to Christy. So I'm going to show you how to split documents as well when that happens. But I'll do that here in a minute. Another thing you can do is browse. So I might have to browse to a property disclosure. So yesterday I went on and I went into a listing and I went into supplements, which again, I don't want this to be an MLS class. So I'm going to tell you that the way to get your property disclosure and lead-based paint, if there is one, or ABA, or anything that you need from the MLS, you're going to go into the MLS and you're going to choose supplements, which is the little pieces of paper or it says supplements. And then I do download those to my computer because there's no other way. And then they end up in my documents and I browse to it, click on it, open, and now it's in here. So now I've pulled a pre-approval in from my email and I've downloaded the property disclosure. This house I clicked on didn't have a lead-based paint. So if it had a lead-based paint, I would have downloaded both of them separately and I would have browsed to them separately and brought them in. So also know both of these documents are what's called a flat PDF. So when I open this, it's not a Dotloop document. Do we understand what that means? It's not interactive, exactly. It's a flat PDF. It's a photo of the document. So you have to add your own initials, which I'll show you here in a minute. I'm gonna drag pre-approval, I'm gonna keep up here. I want the property disclosure to be down in this folder. So you can just drag and drop. So all I did was click on it, drag, drop. Click, drag. Oops, now I opened it.
There's something that's, it took me a little bit, and I didn't know you could do it, but like if you have, let's say you have 3 different things in your downloads. You brought them over, right? So you can highlight.
And bring them all.
And bring them all.
Absolutely.
Going back.
Yeah, that's right. You can check a box next to all. I mean, there's probably a limit of how many, but
Yeah.
for sure, 5 of them will come over.
Some time.
Absolutely. So I'm going to drag and drop that down here under offer. Fee approval, I'm going to keep in buyer docs because I need that for any transaction, not just this one. All right. And then up here, I'm going to go to add documents and now I'm going to go to templates. So just to show you guys what documents you need, I'm going to go into the sales folder. I need American title. I need an agency disclosure. I don't need an amendment. I need an anti-fraud. I don't need an appraisal gap. I don't need a blank addendum. I do need the buyer broker compensation. I do need the buyer representation agreement. Now, obviously, if I showed these people a house and they're making an offer, we probably already got that signed, but I'm just going to pull that over. We need a consumer guide, which I probably already got signed as well. I don't need escrow instructions yet. We haven't even got the offer submitted, let alone accepted. I'll pull that in later. They're not going to do a home warranty, so I'm going to do a home warranty waiver. What I don't need is a home warranty brochure and a home warranty waiver. It's either or. Let's pretend I know, and I'll pull that in. I don't even know why we have the lead-based paint disclosure in here because it's blank and it doesn't have anything to do with the buyer. It comes from the seller, but I'm going to bypass that. I also am not going to put the pamphlet in there because we know that the house was built before or after 78, so it doesn't have one. I also don't pull in any of those documents. What I'm looking for is the purchase agreement. All right. So some of these documents I'm going to keep here in the buyer docs, and then eventually I'm going to drag and drop them down to my offer. Remember when I said you only have one chance to autofill? If I accidentally open up one of these documents right now, it's only going to autofill that document. I don't want that to happen. So I'm not going to be messing around with dragging and dropping documents right now because I can accidentally open it, as I did with the property disclosure when I was playing around with it. So now I'm going to check this box right here. If I check this box, everything checks. If I just want to check certain things, then I do that. Otherwise, I want all of them. When I check that box, you'll notice that this line popped up. Let me go back. It's not there. Now it's there. I could do a bunch of different things here. If I want to print these documents, I can print from here. If I want to make another copy of them, I can make a copy of them. I want to download them. I don't know why we would, but you could. If I want to archive them because I want to start over, I could do so. But what I'm going to do is open them. And now it's giving me the option to autofill the document. And now I don't remember what the address was, but I'm going to make it up. I don't fill any of the rest of this stuff out. It auto-filled buyer's information, autofill. And now it's going to pop up the buyer's name. And if there's two buyers, they'll both pop up there. And then it's going to pop up in the address. So I'm going to put you guys over here again. If I don't hit save, it's going to delete everything that I just did. So I'm going to hit save. And now I'm going to go back. And now I'm going to rearrange. So I want the pre-approval at the top. And then in this spot, I only want the anti-fraud. I want the consumer guide. I want the buyer representation. And that's it. Then I want to drag this down here. As you can see, if I hover over one, it's going to say, do you want to replace it? So be careful not to replace it because the other document will go away. So don't replace
How do
it.
you get that back?
It will go into your archives.
Show our.
Show archive, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah. Buyer broker compensation. And I like my things in a certain order. You guys can put them in whatever order you want. I like this order. I put them in order of importance. I don't think that when someone opens up an offer, they want to see your home warranty waiver first. They want to see the damn pre-approval and the purchase agreement. Also, this, guys, if you don't get all the documents signed, you don't have a contract. So don't say to me, hey, can you look just at my exclusive right to sell? Or can you just look at my purchase agreement? Because I didn't fill anything else out yet. It's not, if it's not a full package, it doesn't exist. There is no, and I've actually had an agent send me just a purchase agreement. That was a KW agent. I will up someplace, not in any of our brokerages. And I was like, where's the rest of your paperwork? And he's like, well, let's just get started with this. No. It's funny. All right. So now we're going to go in and fill everything out. So now I'm going to check the box here and check the box here because it all opens at one time then. I don't need to see the pre-approval. And then I'm going to open it up again. Before I move on to this, and we're not going to really fill everything out, but I'm going to show you some relevant stuff to keep it the Dotloop and not contracts class. Questions about how I got the documents in there or what we're going to do with them, or anything that you want to focus on with that so far. And I want to get through this and I'm going to show you how to split documents and make copies and stuff like that too. So. All right, so now I'm going to start filling it out. Obviously, this document will have already been filled out because I showed them the house, blah, blah, blah. By the way, you also need to get it signed. I sold a house a couple weeks ago, sight unseen, And I had to get this buyer representation agreement signed before I even went to show the house to myself. It's because I'm going to a showing, you were with me, so I guess it was longer than a couple weeks ago. They were in another state, they bought the property sight unseen. I can't go in representing that I'm representing a buyer that doesn't have a buyer's agency signed. They work with me whether they were with me at the showing or not. So they signed it. So we're gonna fill all this out. Also, this, guys, you need to assign these fields. Let me tell you why. I know it says can be signed by our buyer, but when you have two buyers, they will screw things up. And then usually what happens is the husband signs both. And then the wife has no place to sign. And then they're calling you saying, oh, she didn't have any place to sign. And you're like, well, I wonder why. And then you see that their initials is because that they sign in both places. So you need to assign it. So how you do that is you click in the center and see this assign to, hover over it, and then assign it. Now it says the person's initial and not buyer. I also recommend if there's not two, because there's really picky underwriters out there that says, oh, but the contract says there's two buyers. So if you click here, there's this red X that pops up and then you can get rid of it. Yep. I can't undo, so I'll show you again on another page. You're filling everything out. So I'm going to do it right here. So buyer sign here, click it, go down to theirs, and now it says Brent sign here. I don't have a second buyer, so if I click that, there's a red X right here. See it?
Oh, yeah.
And then it deletes it. On this document, you sign it. So now it says signed by me. So Gina sign here, sign. I accept that signature, and then there it is. So by the way, that's what your e-signature is going to look like. What I just did is what your client's going to see when they sign. On to the next document. I'm going to type. Certain things autofill, certain things don't. And then I'm going to assign this field again, delete this one, moving on. Same thing, assign field, delete. If there's a second buyer, by all means, assign it to them. All right. So then I'm going to start typing in information, right? And then, you know, you're filling out the paperwork, checking boxes. I don't want this to be a contracts class, so we aren't going to go over that, but you can see what I'm doing. I'm just typing and going. You see is that every time I type numbers, it wants to autofill my phone number. Because that's pulling from, see, that's pulling from those clauses. So I just bypass it.
Is that annoying when you're trying to do this?
No, because most of the time I need them. So I just ignore it. And it's in clauses, yep. And again, here, assign that initial. It doesn't know who, I don't assign for the seller. The other agent will do that. So everything's going to be filled out. You'll assign all the fields, check boxes, you know. Fill that completely out. In all the spots, yes or no. Hey, I also want to tell you, Rich just finished up our new contract and I was proofing it this morning. And it's so much better than this one.
Very cool.
Oh, it is. It's kind of a combination of some things that we added to this one and our old one. And added some new extra little nice things and took out all of the clouded stuff on here that we don't need, thank God. So there was only a couple little things I want to mention to him on it, but it should be good to go and we'll be getting it soon. So that's good news. You need to check the boxes here for everything that applies to the offer. Residential property disclosure. So just hover and click. If I want a text box, I'm going to show you this real quick, to be smaller or bigger, by the way. If you go to the corner here and you see that little arrow, oops, It might not let me when it's, oh no, there we go. See how I made it smaller? And then if you hover right, you can make it bigger. I'm just in the corner messing around with that. Okay. All right, I want to get to the, so same thing applies. We're just typing and we're assigning fields. I want to get to this one. All right. Before I go on to the flat PDF, did that make sense on that paperwork, what I'm doing? Here for Dotloop goes, you're just typing, you know, information, filling it in, blah, 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 checking boxes if you need to, assigning fields, deleting ones you don't need. That's it for Dotloop goes. Here is our flat PDF. So this is the document that I downloaded. By the way, when you do that, you can see that this seller, this is what their electronic signature looks like. They did their property disclosure in Dotloop. So that's now a flat PDF of their signatures. For the purchaser, as you can see, unlike the rest of the documents, there's nothing here because remember I said it's a picture image, it's a flat PDF. I have to go up here to add initials, drag, and drop. Some people are really picky about it wanting to be lined up. I don't really care if it's in the middle. I don't care if it's anywhere in this box, drop. And then now I'm going to assign the field again. I'm going to do that on all pages, add, initial, drag, drop, and then assign. And then same goes for signature here. Add signature, drag, drop, and then assign. So I'm going to save that. I'm going to show you a couple other things. So I'm going to go back. Let me add. I'm going to add, let's see. No. While I'm finding what I'm adding, anybody have any questions?
Might be preemptive, but I've only seen the flat PDFs with written signatures and initials. How would a listing agent do a flat PDF with seller's information? Do they just like get it all signed and then email it to themselves and then put it as a supplement?
You mean the property disclosure?
Yeah,
It doesn't matter whether they signed it with a pen or they signed it with Dotloop.
no, I understand, but how do they, I guess, transfer it over as a supplement on the MLS?
That's in an MLS training class. So yeah, it shouldn't matter to you as a buyer's agent how they get it in supplements, but as a listing agent, when you go through the steps of entering your listing, there is a place where it says add supplements and add photos.
Okay,
That's where you'll do it.
so do they
So-
just get a sign, download it, and then add it into the photos?
That's not photos, in the supplements.
In
So
the-
in the bottom, when you're done entering, not done, but when you're entering your listing, there's a spot that says add supplements and a spot that says add photos or manage photos or something like that. So that's where. And then you don't take that from Dotloop, you take it from your downloads and you browse to it.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, so I added a blank addendum just to play around with it a little bit here. Some things auto-filled. If I need to add a text box here, so I'm gonna add text and I'm gonna drop it. Oh, it might already have a text box. It does. So
Was
let's,
it too advanced of a question before, like you were putting each individual and then you assign it, and then you put another box.
Mhm.
Shift, is that too advanced for this class where you go down and you could just drop all the different boxes, but then
I mean,
I don't know how then you get them all to be initialed unless you sign each damn box back in.
yeah,
I don't know how that works.
I don't know either, because that's why I just do it this way. So I don't even do it that way.
So, I mean, it's quicker, the box is here.
It is, but then you still gotta go back and assign. So it's not,
That's what I was hoping.
then you're touching it twice. So there's no shortcut that I'm aware of with that. So yeah, unfortunately, you have to. So if I wanted to add a text box, I can add text, drag it anywhere I want to on the page. I can make it bigger, I can make it smaller, and then I can start typing in that text box. Other things I might need to add to a document. Let's just pretend this is something like a lead-based paint where I have to add a checkbox. And again, add checkbox, drag, drop, and then check in the center. If it's too small that I can't check in the center, I can make it bigger. See how I made it bigger? Again, just drag there. I will tell you that Dotloop works very functionally on a computer. It doesn't work good on a laptop or, I'm sorry, it doesn't work good on an iPad or a cell phone. It works, but it makes these kinds of things really tricky to try to click in these little boxes and stuff. Other things I can add a strike through. Maybe something we agreed on the paperwork I want to strike through. I can drag this strike through to be bigger too. If you hover over it the right way. Whoops, that's just moving it. There. You got to catch it in the right spot. So I can add a strike through. I can add a date. By the way, you don't need to go adding dates next to all your signatures and initials, guys. Even though the contract might say date, when they sign it, it dates it. So save yourself some energy and time. But there could be a time where you would need to add a date, so that's why we have it there. What else? I mean, really, that's the basic stuff there for adding stuff to a document and to helping you with a flat PDF. If I want to download the paperwork, I can go into File and Download. Let me save this and do my one last thing. And I know this is what Christy was waiting for too. I'm going to imagine that I have an agent who's sending me paperwork and they didn't share it back with me in Dotloop. Oh, you know what? Let me back up one second. My paperwork's ready and now I need to send it to my buyer. And then I hit share. It knows that this is the person who has fields assigned to them. So it should pop up with their name and a checkbox next to it that says that there's 14 fields assigned and we want to give them the permission can sign, and I just hit share. If they were the listing agent, then I would, once it's signed, then I'm going to share it with the listing agent and I'm going to hit share and not can sign. I want them to have the can edit in private. They need to be able to use this loop properly. If you send them just view, then they're just going to get a screenshot of it. They're not going to be able to use it like a Dotloop document and add their sellers. They aren't signing it, so never can sign. By the way, when you hover over these, it gives you the descriptions of what you're using it for. When an offer is fully agreed upon, and let's just say that we send our offer and then the agent sends me back a counter offer with the seller's signatures on it, and now my buyer's signing that, then I can send it back can view, because now they don't need to edit in private anymore because we've got a done deal. View only is also going to go to the title company, is going to go to the lender. They don't need anything can sign. It's going to be just a view. Any questions about the permissions when you share? All right. I'm going to go to add document from email because, again, copy to clipboard. This agent shared back, let's just pretend, the offer as a, make sure this is the right one. The offer as a download because maybe they don't like to use Dotloop, something like that. So now I'm going to go in here to that email and I'm going to forward it in again like we did before. And back to Dotloop. By the way, if you don't refresh the page, it doesn't pop up. So there it is. So now I'm going to open this up. So Christy, this is for you with your deal because her buyer, this is what happened with her buyer's offer. They sent the document as one big long flat PDF now, and that's okay. I need to go in and now split this document. However, before I split it, I want to archive, not those, these. Why do I want to do that? Because,
Split it, you're gonna have another.
I don't want 10 of these in there. So archive them. Because I don't want 2 purchase agreements, 2 agency disclosures, 2 of all the documents. So now I'm gonna open this up. And now I have the documents ready. So I can split these documents because they are a PDF. I could not split them if they were a JPEG or if they were a Dotloop document. It's because of the fact that they're in the flat PDF form. So now I'm gonna go to File, Split Document. And how many pages are here? So, or how many different documents? So let's count them. So we've got purchase agreement is 1. The buyer broker compensation is 2. The agency disclosure is 3. American title is 4. Property disclosure is 5. Lead-based paint is 6. So 6. So I'm going to split this in 6. And now I'm going to go back up. And now we have to see how many pages each thing is. So this first file name is PA, which is the purchase agreement, and that's from 1 to.
Wait, I have a question.
Yep.
Why do you split it though?
Well, because you can't submit the documents to command for compliance without them being split. When you go into command and you submit your compliance, it says submit the purchase agreement, submit the agency disclosure, submit the property disclosure individually. That's why.
Plus, if you open up, you got scroll yourself.
Exactly.
Find out where the heck it's
True.
Yes.
I didn't even know this was an option.
Oh, well, good. So this is your buyer compensation. So you're just naming them, agency disclosures, 2 pages, so 9 to 10.
Hey,
It is, and
I kind of like it. It actually.
Yeah, you're fine.
That.
if you'll ever do this, I'll be so mad.
APA.
It's probably like super satisfying once they all split.
It is, but also this, don't screw up.
Yeah, don't do that.
What I mean by that is, if I say the ABA is page 11 and 12, it's gonna pull the first page of the property disclosure, and now the whole thing is a disaster, and there's no way of fixing it, guys. There's no reverse. It's not Canva. You can't undo. So then you have to download it again and start over. So don't screw it up. So then page 12 to,
Somebody would screw it up and then send it to you.
oh geez,
What the hell? Oh.
12 to 16. By the way, when you have it, when you're trying to do it on the phone, sometimes the, oops, this little dial on the side here doesn't show up. So when someone says, but it only shows me to 11, well, that's because you got to scroll down. And it might not show up depending on what device you're using. Now I hit split. Done.
And you send them in command, correct?
And then now all my documents are individual. Instead of being that big, long, forwarded combination of letters and numbers or whatever the heck it is. And so we need this to be like this also, because you have to stay organized. Pretend like we used to use old-fashioned files. Would you just have all your paperwork thrown into a file as a mess, or would you have them organized as purchase agreement, buyer compensation? Like, you keep your stuff organized. So besides submitting to command, maybe the lender calls you and says, hey, I need to see the purchase agreement again. Can you share it again? Because by the way, that is a thing. The lenders love to ask for 10 things over and over and over again. Don't know why, but they do. So you might just need to get that over to them. Questions about that?
From the step, do you move all those other docs back down to the offer order?
If it was accepted and I'm doing this, I'm okay with it being like this now, because I only keep them necessarily separated I archived that folder because I had all the, but now that it's accepted, I don't necessarily need 2 folders anymore.
Okay,
If I want to pull back any archives, I just hit show archive and then here they are. And I can go over here and say unarchive that document. And then it's there. Refresh my page, archives go away, and now it's there. So, yeah, you can play around with that like that. What else? I mean, that's it in a nutshell. That's gonna help your daily life doing everything that you need to know if you know how to do what I just did there. I'm sure there's some additional advanced things that we can learn about, but this is gonna be the stuff that you're gonna be doing quite regularly. It's what I use it for on a daily basis. Anybody in here with questions? Anybody on Zoom? Do a stop share. And I hope you guys found this beneficial, and I will make sure that Amanda gets this loaded into Legacy Group Guide, and I'll make sure that Janice gets it over to Living's resource page as well. All right, guys.
Okay.
Go ask.
A little more fan.
That's okay. Go ahead and ask.
Biggest for me was like. Another some stuff, it either ends up in that move or it ends up as nuts, not on the top.
It does. So you bring up a good point. So when we share an offer with another agent, it doesn't, unless we merge loops, go into their loop
So
that they,
merging, that's why.
yes. And so usually I have multiple loops for every one transaction. Because when I sent my offer to you, let's just say, I wrote an offer on your property and I sent it to you. You share it back with me from your loop, not my loop. So now all of a sudden I have a new loop that's your loop.
Yeah.
And so, oh, you know what? Did I not show how to make a copy? Let me jump in real quick, guys. I'm so sorry. Let me go back into Dotloop here real quick. I was feeling like I was missing something. If I want, let's just say I have 2 test loops, right? And this is my loop, but the agent sent me their offer back in their loop. I'm gonna check the boxes of the documents that are in the loop that I don't want them to be in. And I'm gonna say, make a copy to loop. And now I'm gonna type in my loop's name. I have lots of test loops. And then I'm gonna hit copy. And then they're gonna end up in that loop.
When they send you something.
I keep going back and forth with it.
Keep their little.
I keep their loop opened until we're done with the transaction. And I'm not gonna make a copy from my document that my seller or buyer signed, and I'm not gonna place it in their loop because they can't see it if I don't share it with them.
Right.
So I'm still gonna share it with them, and when they get it signed and they share it back with me, it's still gonna appear in their loop. And then I do it again, make a copy to my loop. I'm just constantly pulling it out. So I'm gonna tell you this and then we'll let you guys go. Lucky for me, I was taught Dotloop by Dotloop. So back, I don't know, 17 years ago, I don't even know when the heck it was, it's so long ago. Dotloop became a thing and they came to my brokerage I was at for a month and taught us how to use Dotloop. And many training classes, and this is what they explained it to me as, and this visuals always stayed in my head, so I'll share it with you. Let me stop share. Dotloop is like a file cabinet. Dotloop is a file cabinet in your office. And inside that file cabinet, close your eyes and think of the green hanging folders. The green hanging folders are your loops. If Dotloop is the file cabinet, the green hanging folders are your loops. Inside of those green hanging folders, you have those manila folders, right? That say something on them, like buyer docs or offer. So inside each of your folders, which is the manila folder that's inside of your green hanging file folders, which are your loop inside of your file cabinet, which is Dotloop, you then have documents. Your purchase agreement, your agency disclosure, your pre-approval. Those are the docs. So if I'm sharing my documents with you to give your seller a sign, you're going to make a copy of them because you need a copy too as a listing agent. And then you're going to put them in your file cabinet. And then you're going to send me back a copy to put in my file cabinet. That's why I like to keep the file cabinet separate, and I don't want to use their loop. I want my own. It's okay if they're merged. I'm not saying it's not okay. Sometimes it makes it quick and easy, but when I have 15 offers on a listing and some of them are in and some of them are not, it makes it a disaster.
So it's like when you're using command, you already said you're already above.
Correct.
That's another thing, right?
And so if I'm in a hurry, which is what I'm usually trying to do, is get this done in a hurry, somewhat. And I've created my loop, but I haven't done my opportunity yet. Then I've got an agreed contract. Now I'm gonna go in command, I'm gonna create my opportunity, which is going to start a new loop. And then I'm gonna make a copy of my documents from the loop that I started, and I'm gonna put them in the loop that I did that's connected to command. And then I can submit. You can't submit your documents to command from the loop that you created outside of opportunities. And then I archive the first one. If I had a listing and I get 3 offers and we don't accept any of them, archive. I don't need to keep those loops. I only want mine and I keep it cleaned up. So you're gonna keep it organized and I keep it cleaned up. That's also why I say you want to start with the right documents from the beginning. You don't need 2 purchase agreements. You don't need a vacant land purchase agreement. You don't need a home warranty brochure and the home warranty waiver. It's either or. And if you pull some of the things in because you don't know yet, archive the documents you don't need. Because it just starts clouding up it makes it harder for you, is my point. Any other questions? But thank you for bringing that up because I forgot to show how to do that. I'm sure they will happen as you go forward, just like with everything. This is great to watch and it could be a great resource to go back to. But until you're practicing it and you're doing it with your own transactions, and doing it enough, it makes it hard. So. All right, guys. Well, thanks so much for joining. I'm going to stop record and we
Thanks,
will
Gina.
get this to where it needs to go. Yep, go ahead. Who's asking?
No, I just said thanks.
Oh, okay. You're welcome. Thank you too.